first downs on offense, punted the ball down on the 1 yard line. Defense plays a 3 and out. We go for the punt. We get a good bounce on a short punt. Marquise takes it back to the 4 yard line, and then we stuff a score in there, and then we didn't look back from there. So I think that's what I was most pleased about. Obviously, when you sit there and recap a game, you always think about the things that you weren't pleased about. And, it's just, I think I probably had a hyped up expectation. I think LIU was a solid football team. They were down to the third string quarterback. But I think they kept the ball inside and in front. It was a little bit frustrating getting going offensively. But, we found a way to get it. And in the end of the day, a three-score victory is a good thing. Homecoming crowd was outstanding. The entire day was a great deal. I sure would like to be able to get back to these 1 o'clock games, though, because they're about to kill me.
You touched on that big return from Marquise. Everybody knows he's one of the best receivers in the country and had another great game with 103 yards the other night. What went into the decision to putting him back on punts?
Well, we went into the game, we were concerned. We've had some issues early in the season with just, the return game, both of them just catching and fielding balls. Made a major emphasis, and we made a decision going into this game because of the nature of their punt game to put two returners back. So Angel was on the left side as quote unquote the primary, and then Marquise was on the right side as the guy was a little bit shorter. Uh, this punter they had kicks it all over the yard, and so this one just happened to have been short, across his body. It took one hop, big hop, and we teach our guys to if it's a big hop and you can field it without, getting hit, and then go ahead and do it. And he started to go with it. And I said, okay, good decision there. And then he started reverse field. And I said, hey, bad decision there. He's going the wrong way. But then he opened up, and I thought I was really impressed with the discipline of our guys on the punt return squad. They had opportunities to, you know, show good football and not making a penalty, doing stupid on a blind side block or anything like that. And we were able to get that ball down. But uh, it was a huge play. And Marquise, when he came off, I said, I guess you really do want that job, don't you? And he said, yeah, I want that job. I said, well, we'll see how it is going forward. Make sure you catch everyone during the course of practice. And then, of course, today he dropped one. And I said, hey, man, there you go, man. I just got to keep you on the bench. No, we'll figure that one out as down the road, but it was a really cool play.
Question for you from Tiffany. Go ahead, Tiffany.
You're muted, Tiff.
Yeah, on Tiffany. Yeah, on mute.
You would think I would not unmute my phone by now, right?
It happens to the best of us.
Let's keep it on Marcus for a minute. I did a whole column on him last year. Let's talk about, he's overcome so much in life off the field. Talk to me a little bit about his character, and then talk to me about how he is as a weapon on your team.
Well, character, you start with his mom, his mom don't mess around, and she's raised good boys, and he's a good son, and he cares deeply for his family. They've got a very tight connection there. Um, he's a kid that spends a bunch of time up in Providence around youth, because he recognizes the impact that he has made as a kid that came from Providence, not in a distraught. His mom works extremely hard to keep everything on the table. Had a house burned down last year, and everybody in the Rhode Island community came about to help them get back on their feet. So Marquise is a special kid. We've always said, we want to keep the best Rhode Island players in Rhode Island, and he was one that obviously had an opportunity to go elsewhere, but he's chosen to make his mark here, and we're hoping to hold on to him for another year. Um, and as a playmaker, the numbers speak for themselves. He's got a very good instinct, for, getting open. There's a lot of little details that he works on with his coach, and in terms of, how to get off jams and how to run routes. But he's got a very natural ability to find holes in coverage, and him and Dev got an extremely good thing going. And when you're 6'3" plus, and you got good vertical speed and a good catch radius, he's able to go ahead and pluck the ball out of some tough situations. He picked up a big PI for us, but we're after him to be strong enough to be able to rip through the PI and be able to pull that in for a touchdown. But it still was a productive play for us, and just a really dynamic player, and one that I'm really glad he's on our team.
I can follow up now. Um, you do pretty well against New England teams. If there was a New England only bowl, um, and there's a team that you have not yet played against, what team would you want to play?
That's just deadly question. That's a deadly question. Who do I want to play? I mean, I'm like we play them every year. I mean, you sit there and you look at it. We're all, it's something we start with in terms of being, dominant in our region. You got Maine, you got New Hampshire, you got Bryant, you got Brown. You got, the Northeast region. You've got to be able to be successful in. So I'm not going to answer that question because it'll be bulletin board material for somebody else.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. Question from you, Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Coach, just to talk about the defense coming into the year. There were some question marks. Last two games, 7 points allowed in each of those two games. First time you've held, or URI teams have held two opponents back to back to single figures since 1990. Just talk about the defense as a team.
Yeah, I think that the word you just used is what represents it. It's a team defense. Everybody has their one piece out of 11 to be able to take care of, and they take great pride in doing that. I think they're very well coached. I think Laurenti and the staff puts them in the right position. I think he's very good about, dialing things up and making adjustments on game day. But, our kids are, really playing extremely hard and very fundamental, which is the thing you like to see. You like to see when you look at a good defense, you can look out there and you see body postures that are representative of good football, low, bent knees, proud chest. And then you look at their effort level running around, running to the football. I thought they've been doing that extremely well. We like to, we got a couple picks last week, like to start turning on that tap that gives us the fumbles and start knocking those out. But it's a strong group that is playing well with the parts that we have available. And it was very unknown at the beginning of the year, but each position coach is doing a phenomenal job preparing their group. They're playing extremely well together. They're playing with belief, and they're going to rise up to any challenge and put the ball down. You mentioned, single digits two times in a row. Both of those, truthfully, if we can tweak a little bit here and there, might, it can go shutouts. But at the same time, as that's when you start getting really greedy as a coach because they're hard to come by.
You're never happy, never happy.
Yeah.
If I could follow up, it seems like we mention AJ Pena every Monday, but deservedly so. He had a sack and a half and 2.5 TFLs, and those 2.5 put him over the top as the all-time leader in tackles for loss at URI, passing Frank Farrar, and he's close to doing the same with sacks, but has done it with TFLs. Let's talk about that milestone.
I think that I think those are motivating for him. I think certainly you like to be able to know when, you've been part of a kid's development and you see the success he's had, that number will remain in the record book for a long period of time. And you were there for that. That's kind of cool, when you look at those things. But for him, I think they're motivating factors. I think that he wants to be the best. He wants to be, an all-time leader in sacks and tackles for loss and whatever else record he can get. I'm not really sure what's available, but certainly, as you mentioned, I probably ought to do something nice for him, like a game ball or something that shows that. But maybe we'll do that at the end of the season when he stacks up some more. But he's been a very steady player, obviously, and he creates a lot of problems for opposing offenses. And I'm looking forward to see how he can go ahead and attack these guys this weekend as well. I know it'll be a big game for him, just because you always think about how the scouts are going to evaluate you when you play up to the FBS level. And I'm sure he's looking forward to going and seeing what we could do with these tackles.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Jim, before I let you go, let's talk about Western Michigan. Chance to face an FBS team. You've won some of these games in the past, and you're playing a team that's coming off a really good win over a good Toledo team on Saturday. What are the challenges they present, and what are the keys to trying to win these type of games?
Well, the challenges are what they are. I mean, you're going to have guys with larger number of scholarships. You're going to we're dealing with 54. They're dealing with probably 85 or more nowadays. So there's a difference level there. Talent wise, it's a more comfortable matchup than it is when you're going into Minnesota. That was a tough one to try to match up with. But as I was talking to the kids this morning, I mean, we've had one FBS win over UMass a couple 3 years ago. I think it was 2021. But we were in games. Virginia Tech. We were in. We were then 14 going into score to bring it within seven late. We were UConn. We were lost by seven. We were in that one late. Central Michigan. We lost in an overtime game when we missed a field goal in the first over in the overtime. We could have put that one in the pocket. So to answer your question, it really becomes, managing the game to, play it like you play every other game, but you want to be in a position where you're in striking range to be able to make them uncomfortable in the fourth quarter. That's where the pressure lies. They've gotten one win over Toledo, which is a big victory for them, knowing the conference very well. This one, you look, they need to put in the pocket and then move on to conference play. FCS coming into your place, you don't want to take a loss to those guys. And so I told them, let's play this game to go on out and win it. There's no pressure on our backs. We're going to pick up the paycheck one way or the other, and, going out there, if we can manage the game, put it into late in the game, then, you got a chance to go ahead and make that kind of upset on the road. And certainly would love to do it. I think that, we've been close, but close doesn't get you the real thing. We remember that UMass game very well and very proud of that victory. And that wasn't really even close. And so be. That's the offensive coordinator who was at UMass at that time. He was now calling the offense for Western Michigan. So full circle stuff here, but it's going to be a good challenge. It's a big challenge for us. We got to really match up front and play well in all three phases and not make those mistakes that prevent you from winning.
All right, Jim. Thanks so much for your time today. Safe travels to Kalamazoo. Good luck